Hey everyone, Trevor Noah here. We're about to dive into a political pressure cooker, Project 2025. Imagine a giant Jenga tower, each block a piece of the American government. Project 2025 wants to pull out some blocks and hope the whole thing doesn't fall down. Bold move, right? This isn't some late-night conspiracy theory, folks. This is a real plan. Stay tuned. It's going to be a wild ride. Here's the thing about Jenga. One wrong move and the whole thing collapses. And Project 2025, it's making some moves. We're talking about a huge power shift towards the presidency. Imagine all the power of the government concentrated in the hands of one person. Sound familiar? That's right. It's giving me some serious déjà vu to a certain someone's first term. So, is Project 2025 a recipe for a more efficient government? Or is it a recipe for disaster? All right, folks, let's talk about the first big move in Project 2025. Executive power consolidation. In simple terms, it's like giving the president the master key to the entire government. Every decision, every policy, every appointment would flow directly from the Oval Office. No more pesky Congress getting in the way, just pure, unadulterated presidential power. Now, the folks behind this plan say it's all about efficiency, less bureaucracy, quicker decisions. But let's be real, people. Whenever someone tells you they need absolute power to get things done, it's usually a good time to start asking questions. So what happens when you give one person all the power? Well, it can go a few different ways. The optimistic view is that a powerful executive can cut through red tape and get things done. But here's the flip side. What happens when that power falls into the wrong hands? Remember those checks and balances I mentioned earlier? They're kind of important. They're there to prevent tyranny, to ensure that no one person or branch of government becomes too powerful. And that's a dangerous game to play. Section 3. A new power dynamic, shifting the balance. Project 2025 isn't just about changing the presidency, it's about changing the entire power dynamic in Washington. By concentrating power in the executive branch, it weakens the other branches, especially Congress. Imagine Congress as the annoying little brother who keeps messing up your room. Project 2025 wants to give the president the power to lock that little brother in the basement and throw away the key. And that, my friends, is a recipe for a very different kind of America. Section 1, Bureaucracy's Big Shake-Up, Transforming the Civil Service. All right, folks, let's talk about a group of people who are often overlooked but are absolutely crucial to how our government functions, the Federal Civil Service. These are the folks who keep the lights on, the ones who actually make the government work day in and day out. Now, Project 2025 wants to give this system a major makeover. We're talking about reclassifying thousands of civil service jobs, turning them from career positions into political appointments. They're betting that loyalty to the president is more important than experience, expertise, and a deep understanding of how the government actually works. Section 2, Loyalty over Experience, the Expertise Dilemma. Now, the folks behind Project 2025 will tell you that this reclassification is about making the government more responsive to the will of the people. They'll say that career bureaucrats are too entrenched, too set in their ways, and that they need fresh blood, people who are more in tune with the president's vision. But here's the problem. Governing is not like running a business. It's not about profits and losses. It's about serving the needs of the American people. By prioritizing loyalty over experience, Project 2025 risks creating a government that is less effective, less efficient, and more prone to making costly mistakes. Section 3. A recipe for instability, the potential fallout. The potential consequences of this kind of massive shake-up in the civil service are pretty alarming. For starters, you're likely to see a lot of brain drain, as experienced professionals decide they don't want to work in a system where their expertise is no longer valued. This exodus of knowledge and experience could cripple the government's ability to function effectively, but it goes beyond just efficiency. This reclassification could also lead to increased politicization of the civil service, and that's a recipe for disaster, folks. Section 1. Money moves. Shaking up the economic landscape. Hold on to your wallets, folks, because Project 2025 isn't just about changing who's in charge, it's about changing how the entire economy works. We're talking major surgery on the tax system, a complete overhaul of the Federal Reserve, and a whole new approach to government spending. They want to ditch the old playbook and rewrite the rules of the game to favor a very specific vision of how the economy should work. Now, the proponents of these changes argue that they'll unleash unprecedented economic growth, boost wages, and create jobs. But critics warn that these drastic measures could destabilize the economy, widen the gap between the rich and poor, and leave vulnerable Americans even further behind. Section 2, the Fed on the chopping block. A risky gamble? Let's start with the big one, abolishing the Federal Reserve. This is like saying, you know, that institution that's been managing our money supply and setting interest rates for over a century? Yeah, we're done with them. The Fed has been around for ages and it's been the target of plenty of criticism over the years. But it's also been the bedrock of our financial system, providing stability and preventing economic meltdowns. So getting rid of it is a pretty radical move, to say the least. It's a gamble and the stakes are incredibly high. Section 3, taxing times reshaping the revenue system. Next up, let's talk taxes. Project 2025 wants to completely revamp the tax code, moving away from our current system and towards a consumption-based model. This means that instead of taxing income, they want to tax what people spend. A consumption tax like a national sales tax would disproportionately impact low-income earners who spend a larger percentage of their income on essential goods and services. So we're essentially looking at a system where the rich pay less and the poor and middle class end up footing the bill. Section 1, classrooms in the crosshairs, reshaping education policy. All right, folks, let's move on to a topic that hits close to home for many Americans: education. Project 2025 sees education as another area ripe for a shake-up. We're talking about a fundamental shift in the role of the federal government in education, a move towards greater state control, and a big push for school choice initiatives. Supporters of these changes argue that they'll lead to more innovation, more parental control, and a better education for all students. But critics warn that these changes could exacerbate existing inequalities, create a patchwork of different educational standards across the country, and leave disadvantaged students even further behind. Section 2, Federal Retreat, Empowering States or Undermining Equality. One of the most significant changes proposed by Project 2025 is a dramatic reduction in the role of the federal government in education. They want to shift power and resources away from Washington and back to the states. Now, on the surface, this might sound like a good thing, but here's the catch. Not all states are created equal when it comes to education funding and resources. By pulling back federal funding and oversight, Project 2025 risks exacerbating these existing inequalities. This creates a situation where your zip code becomes a major determining factor in the quality of education you receive. Section 3, the choice debate, expanding options or fueling inequality. Project 2025 aims to expand school choice initiatives, giving parents more options like charter schools, private schools, or homeschooling. The idea is to empower parents and promote competition, but it's complicated. Critics argue it harms public schools, especially for low-income families. Diverted funding can create a two-tiered system. It can also increase segregation and inequality. Fortress America, reshaping immigration and border policy. Project 2025 isn't just shaking up the economy and education, they're taking aim at immigration and border security. Imagine the US as a house with a moat and laser beams. Supporters argue it's essential for national security and jobs. Critics warn these policies are cruel and counterproductive. Let's break down these proposals and their potential consequences. Section 2, walls and fees, tightening the borders and raising the bar. One of the most prominent features of Project 2025's approach to immigration is a heavy emphasis on border security. We're talking increased funding for border patrol agents, more surveillance technology, and yes, even the possibility of expanding physical barriers along the US-Mexico border. But it's not just about building walls, it's about making it harder for people to even get close to those walls in the first place. Think increased visa restrictions, stricter asylum policies, and a general crackdown on both legal and undocumented immigration. Project 2025 supporters argue that these measures are necessary to deter illegal immigration, prevent drug trafficking, and protect national security. They believe that a strong border is a non-negotiable aspect of national sovereignty. But critics counter that these policies are costly, ineffective, and often inhumane. They point to the fact that most undocumented immigrants overstay their visas rather than crossing the border illegally, and that building walls does little to address the root causes of migration such as poverty, violence, and climate change. Beyond the concrete and steel of border security, Project 2025 also seeks to fundamentally reshape America's approach to immigration itself. They propose reducing overall immigration levels, prioritizing certain skills and professions over family reunification, and making it more difficult and expensive for people to obtain legal residency and citizenship. Think of it like this. Imagine America as a members-only club, and they're making the entrance exam harder, the membership fees higher, and the guest list a whole lot shorter. Supporters of these changes argue that they will protect American jobs, reduce strain on social services, and preserve American values and culture. They believe that immigration should be merit-based, favoring those who can contribute economically and assimilate seamlessly into American society. However, critics argue that these policies are short-sighted, discriminatory, and betray America's long-standing identity as a nation of immigrants. They point out that immigrants contribute significantly to the economy, create jobs, and enrich American culture with their diverse perspectives and talents. They warn that by turning away from its immigrant roots, America risks becoming a more insular, less compassionate, and ultimately less dynamic and prosperous nation. Hold on to your hard hats, folks, because Project 2025 is about to take us on a wild ride back to the fossil fuel future. They're cranking up oil, gas, and coal production while hitting the brakes on renewables. Imagine monster trucks doing donuts on solar panels and wind turbines. A full-throttle embrace of traditional energy sources with little regard for the environment. Critics argue this will accelerate global warming and pollute our air and water. Section 2, Digital Detox, Revamping Tech Regulations and Language. Project 2025 is on a mission to clean house. Major overhaul of tech regulations, crackdown on big tech and banning certain terms. Imagine a digital detox camp with mandatory coding classes, tech CEOs meditating on privacy, and algorithms on trial for misinformation. It's a brave new world of digital governance, and no one is sure what the rules are anymore. Some cheer this digital detox, reining in big tech, protecting privacy, and stopping harmful content. But critics cry foul, calling it censorship and government overreach. They argue it stifles innovation, limits free speech, and gives the government too much control. It's a digital tug-of-war with high stakes for the internet's future. Critics sound the alarm. Project 2025 isn't exactly a crowd pleaser. It's sparked criticism, controversy, and panic among those who see it as a threat to democracy. Imagine throwing a surprise party with a wrecking ball. Most would be running for the exits, wondering what hit them. Critics warn it's a dangerous power grab that could reshape America. Trump's shadow echoes of a past presidency. Project 2025 can't be discussed without mentioning Donald J. Trump. His fingerprints are all over it. Project 2025 has a distinct Trumpian flavor dressed with new policy jargon. It echoes Trump's themes: deep state attacks, protectionist trade policies. It's an inward-looking America, skeptical of international engagement. Section 3, the Jenga verdict, a gamble with high stakes. So, here's the million-dollar question, folks. Is Project 2025 a bold vision for a stronger, more prosperous America, Or is it a reckless gamble that could send the whole system crashing down around us? It's like that moment in a Jenga game when you've pulled out all the easy blocks and you're left staring at a tower that's barely standing upright. One wrong move, one miscalculation, and the whole thing could collapse in a heap. The stakes are incredibly high, folks. We're not just talking about policy tweaks or ideological debates here. We're talking about a fundamental shift in how America sees itself, how it interacts with the world, and how it governs its people. Project 2025 is a gamble, a high-stakes wager that the ends justify the means, that radical change is necessary to restore America's greatness. But the question remains, at what cost? And who will ultimately pay the price if this gamble doesn't pay off?